I'm Lily.
And I'm Jordan.
And we're the Drakes.
Welcome to Drake Academy. For today's episode, Lily and I are going to start off by talking about a question I put to Twitter. Should draws be eliminated? And if we go to time, should the winner just be seat 4? Something I posed to Twitter, and now we're going to talk about it and weigh the pros and cons here. Next, for the bulk of our discussion today, we are going to talk about how to survive the turbo meta with a mid-range deck. It's a question we get asked a lot, and we're going to teach you how to do it. Before finally, we'll answer some questions like always, and then kind of review the meta over the last week. Before we jump into our episode, though, we have some ads. So first up, we want to talk about the Boil 2026. This is the third iteration of LANGO's the Boil event. Before it was run by Top Deck, this will be the first year LANGO's running it. It's going to be hosted in New Orleans, Louisiana, March 28th. Through that whole weekend. It'll be a 10K prize, so we're pretty excited. There's also lots of side events, and I think the idea is that this is just going to be one awesome kind of convention-style event.
Yeah, we're really excited. LANGO always puts on great events. Really excited to see how this one turns out. Jordan has to defend his Boil title, so,
Yep, got to defend the crown.
Tune in for that, guys.
We also have the Kraken's Cup, March 21st through the 22nd in Nags Head, North Carolina. This is in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, a really pretty area. This is going to be a 20K CEDH tournament, maybe one of the largest that North Carolina's hosted, at least prize-wise. So we're hoping to see a good turnout. Lily and I will be there, and I think a couple of our teammates from Monolith will also be there.
I think Corwin's coming down.
I think Corwin is coming down, so that'll be really cool. Hope to see everyone at these two events. All right, so Lily, the question I posed to Twitter, maybe dumbly because it is Twitter after all, or X or whatever we're calling it.
It's X now.
Yeah, whatever. What if the solution to CEDH's draw/seat 4 problem is just say games can't end in a draw, so if the 80 plus 20 time limit is hit, seat 4 wins?
That's interesting.
Is it good, though?
I think I like it, but I think it incentivizes seat 4 to play for draw. They already are.
I was going to say, someone commented
So
that.
what's the difference?
And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, Matt from Lemore's Cards was like, what's changed from the status quo? Yeah. And I think when I'm in seat 4, like, I'm thinking tactically, I'm not going to overextend because, like, I'm not in a position to. So it's like, if I have the opportunity to push a win, sure, but I'm better off hanging around and seeing how the game unfolds for me.
Mm-hmm. You're also not really incentivized to keep interaction either. I find a lot of players saying, well, that's not my problem. You guys can lose or we can force a draw.
Well, especially if you're in seat 4 and you start mulling low. Yeah. Then it's kind of like, okay, now where are we at?
Yeah.
So I kind of see it both ways. And there's a different groups that were arguing in the comments about back and forth. More people say that the bans are more of an issue than kind of changing the rules. That if we just go back to the unbans, we'll solve all the problems. How do you feel about that?
So the unbans as in Nadu back, Dockside back, Mana Crypt back.
And J-Lo.
And J-Lo back. Oh, give me J-Lo. Unleash J-Lo. No, but unselfishly, I don't think that's the best idea. No. I think Dockside needed to stay gone and Nadu needed to stay gone.
I'd agree.
At the point where admitting a commander is a design mistake, I think that's just a sign that should stay gone.
I'm also not sure I've ever bought I hear people say it all the time that Dockside is a catch-up mechanic in seat 4.
It is. I buy that.
Sure, to some degree. But let's be real. If you go back and look, seat 1 was still winning a lot too. Sure, right? Like, sure. I don't buy the idea. I have trouble buying the idea that Dockside was giving seat 4 such an overwhelming advantage because it was the catch-up mechanic. Mm-hmm. Even if you look at the numbers, it only shifted a couple percentage points. The draw problem started, but it was already trending up as well.
I think it's the idea that seat 4 could win out of nowhere. If seats 1 through 3 deploy irresponsibly, then seat 4 can just win. Sure. Win the second they drop Dockside, and now that isn't the case.
That's fair.
Now they have also a tougher time winning statistically than they did before.
But I also think that's the issue. I think when you think about the meta during that era, like that was the idea, right? Mm-hmm. You can't deploy too aggressively or Dockside just comes down. But nobody did that. Mm-hmm. Nobody cautiously deployed into Dockside decks. They just threw all their stuff down and said, well, if they get Dockside. But the idea was still, I'm just going to go faster. Like, that became 99% of the game plan. That's actually why Nadu was so devastating, because it didn't have to deploy really much of anything that Dockside could take advantage of, right? It deployed a Shuko, sure, but like it was mostly a landfall deck, kind of masquerading as something else. And so you didn't really need a ton of artifacts to get going. But like it took artifact decks out of the format. It took Enchantress builds out of the format. Certain decks just never could keep up. Like, I don't know. I don't like cards that take decks out of the format. Like, it's just, you cannot play them because this card just overwhelmingly abuses that particular style of deck. And we don't really, we still kind of have that. Like, Bowmasters takes out stacks decks a lot of times, which is also, again, why I've advocated pretty heavily that Bowmasters should be, I believe Bowmasters should be banned. Like,
I know you do.
I hate the card.
I know you do.
And it creates horrible play patterns for everybody. But I think that was my issue with Dockside, right? Is it created also lazy deck building.
It did. You were right about that.
Yeah.
You were right about that.
Because it was so abusable that it didn't really require you to do much besides like, okay, I do this and then I win.
Throw Dockside in a deck, loop Dockside a couple times, so I win the game.
Yeah.
Or I don't.
I don't really feel like it required the same level of strategic play that required nowadays. Like I feel like the level of play today is a higher level than it was back then. Because before it was just find Dockside, win. True. And every game turned into find Dockside and immediately win, or risk my Dockside being cloned and the next player winning. But it always became about Dockside. Every game became about Dockside. Nowadays,
could we not argue it's the same for Heuristic Study? But find Heuristic Study. Hope they get Heuristic Study. Clone Heuristic Study.
Only certain decks are cloning Heuristic Studies, though.
That's fair.
If you think about it, it's definitely get a draw engine, but it's not always ubiquitously Heuristic Study. Now, is Heuristic Study the best? 100%.
For sure.
And I do think there is a very reasonable argument that Heuristic Study should also be banned out of the format. I have trouble when I think about like problematic cards in the format. Heuristic Study is always number one. And then Bowmasters is probably number two for me.
Interesting. See, I'm Heuristic neutral, right? Like
I think from I think it's a tournament format issue. Because of the time, too many triggers on the stack creates elongated games.
You could argue that for any trigger heavy deck, right? Like,
but that's the most trigger heavy card.
Ban Gaia's Cradle because you can activate it 30 times with a Training Grounds and a Thrasios.
But I'm doing the actions and I'm going quickly through them, right? When it's like cast a spell, 3 rounds of Heuristic Studies have to resolve. Now I have to think about if I want those to resolve before I'm doing the thing, right? It's passive actions versus active actions. If I activate Thrasios, I activate. I'm just doing my thing, right? Like, unless you're responding to my active play, I'm actively doing the thing. Whereas before, it's like, I cast a spell, 3 rounds of Heuristic Studies. Or I cast another spell, 3 more rounds of Heuristic Studies. Then it's like, okay, well, now there's a Bowmaster and a Smothering Tithe. Well, now all that stuff starts stacking. Whereas if it's like, other decks, it's not going to stack as hard because it's harder to create those same type of game states without a Heuristic Study that's just passively drawing everybody cards on the table because it's ubiquitous card.
To the Heuristic point, though, I think if people get away from the prevailing thought of don't counter the draw engine, counter the win con, we'd be fine.
Yeah, but then people make good points about
counter the draw engine.
But there are times when you can't counter the draw engine, right? You just can't.
Yeah.
Right? If you're playing against a turbo deck and the mid-range deck drops a Heuristic Study, you cannot counter the Heuristic Study. You just can't. It sucks. And I wish I could. And I've thought about it. But I'm like, then we just lose.
So then is giving seat 4 the win in the event of a draw
so the
solution?
The idea here is I think players right now are incentivized to push games to draw states.
Yes.
Because there's just no reason not to. Like, if I don't think I can win, then I'll just push us to time. I'll just draw the game out by pushing us to time, taking lots of game actions, yapping a ton, and I can draw out a game that I can no longer win, right? If you take it and put it in a position where there's always a winner, then there's never an incentive to yap through the time unless someone's in seat 4 yapping, which at that point you just tell them to shut up and keep playing, right? Like, at that point I think it becomes a lot more obvious if someone's slow playing, because if it's seat 4 just trying to slow play out the game,
right,
I think it becomes quickly obvious.
That's fair.
Seat 4 is already playing for draw anyway most of the time. And it hasn't been a problem in top 16s for the most part. Most players are still winning naturally.
Yeah.
Right? Like, seat 1 is given an even heavier advantage than they already had, which, again, I don't know that I even agree with that was reasonable, but I also understand because it gives you an incentive to also play out rounds for players to cut into top 16.
But it makes Swiss matter, which is good.
Right.
It solves some of the draw issues in Swiss.
Well, just if you take away... you don't solve the ID problem.
No.
But I
don't know that there's a good solution to it, though.
Other than just taking away IDs.
Yeah.
You just cannot ID under any circumstance.
Yeah.
Like, no one can even bring it up, but can you guys just have like a gentleman's agreement, like a quick head nod, like, hey, we all gonna agree? Maybe, right? But I think forcing players to play out games that are natural. I mean, I don't know that I really even care about IDs. People ID in 60 card, and it's not a problem. People
Yeah.
ID in chess, and it's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up the point that when everybody is playing optimally, draws are naturally going to happen.
Oh, in chess? Yeah.
Yeah. So
if two grandmasters play and they're both playing perfect, it'll end in a draw.
yeah.
That's the problem with, or not the problem with chess, but that creates the issue with chess of like grandmasters will then instead play suboptimally, quote unquote, to gain an advantage over their opponents because now you're doing different moves, which creates the game, I guess, is how there's winners and losers. But and I do think CEDH has that to some degree, right? When there's a pot of 4 really good players, they all know how to not lose.
Exactly.
So that does that's why when people were pointing out the invitational and looking at the draw record, I was like, I don't think that matters.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, you've got some of the best players in the world all playing
some of the best
optimally.
And some of the yappiest, right? We have all of the people that are best at yapping congregated into the tables together, where every pod is a top 16 pod. And we're shocked that most of them drew.
But even I was in a lot of pods that were drawing that weren't yappy.
Me too.
It was just like players were playing so optimally that we all came to the same logical conclusion at the same time. That there's no way, there's no way for the stack to resolve in enough time because there's too many game actions to be taken, which is, again, where Ristic Study is a problem because every time I take a game action, there's now all these triggers that have to go on the stack that now have to resolve. But those all refill players' hands, which then creates even more issues because now people can keep going indefinitely in theory, right? As long as they're drawing the right cards.
Right.
Whereas if you take cards like that out of the format, then the resource wars do eventually end. It becomes who set up their board better, not who got luckier while playing it down the stack, right? Because sometimes that's really who wins these battles is who got luckier on the stack versus who didn't.
That's
right?
fair.
If my Ristic Study drew me more pieces of interaction than your Ristic Study drew you, but we both started with the same exact resources, you got, right? Like that's all it is. But in a world in which we both started with, like say you started with an extra counterspell and there's no Ristic Study, well then you're going to win the battle on the stack because I didn't set up correctly to beat my opponents. So
that's correct, but I think the issue in these large stack battles becomes the flash enablers because...
But that doesn't matter if if you're not drawing cards to enable the flash enablers, then there's nothing that matters.
But your Ristic Study doesn't matter if you're not able to flash wins on top. Okay, you stop the win that's on the stack. If you're not getting another turn, you're drawing anyways.
Right.
It's the flash enablers that allow your Ristic Study draws to matter, right? They enable the shenanigans, they enable the strength of Ristic Study, but a bunch of good pieces, a bunch of win cons in your hand that you can't flash out don't matter if you're not the active player.
But it doesn't matter because you're not going to draw everything else that you need to keep going, right? So for example, if I'm sitting on a flash win, but I don't have a Ristic Study to set up, then when we get to the stack battle, I have to time it exactly perfectly to jam it through. Because if you're still sitting on counterspell, I'm not drawing any more interaction to fight, right? Like that's not happening.
We've seen plenty of people do that. We've seen you do that
right.
to just hang out in an interaction battle, wait until the very end and say, I win.
Right, but Ristic Studies drag those battles out by another 30 minutes, if not longer. And Ristic Study creates more draws than just about any other card in the format.
That's fair.
By like a large margin. And I actually think the reason draws are on the uptick is not because Dockside's gone. I think because Ristic meta became more of a thing.
Well, people had to compensate for the lack of the quick win, right? We had to start thinking, okay, how do we win now?
Well, the quick win is still very much there, right? Ral, Roxai.
Thassa's console exists in any blue-black shell, right?
It's not even that. Because remember, when all those got banned, people said Roxai was dead, which I thought was funny because I initially thought Roxai was fine. I was like, I don't see how Roxai's dead.
Right.
But then buddies were saying, oh, well, they relied on Dockside to do a lot of fixing for them.
And they did. That's not wrong.
Well, sure. Everybody.
It made Adnos way easier.
Well, sure. Dockside made everything easier. That's the problem with Dockside is it was too good for doing everything you wanted it to do.
I missed that little pirate.
Nowadays, you now have, okay, I'm going to sit behind Ristic Study or I'm going to jam, right? Now I'm just going to try and jam a Necro, which they still do just fine. Like, I don't know. I don't think the format's draw issue, while I do believe there is some correlation, I don't believe that it is the end-all, be-all causation of everything that's going wrong in CEDH.
I think players also just got better at forcing draws.
Yeah.
People realized, oh, this is how to not lose games.
Yeah,
Cool,
100%.
we're going to do this.
100%.
And once Right. It seemed like a lot of people caught on at the same time, and we've seen the trend slowly building post-ban, but not necessarily due to the bans. It's just how the meta has evolved.
Yeah. I do think there's some interesting solutions. I still am always going to be on the fence that Dockside was a design mistake as well and should never have existed.
It's crazy.
I believe it is. Like, because the old play pattern too of like I play down a Smothering Tithe, everyone's greedy into it, and then someone else gets to take advantage of the fact that I played the expensive piece, I took the risk, I sat on it doing my responsible thing, and then someone else just gets to play Dockside and take all my treasures. Like that was an extraordinarily frustrating play pattern that made the game very unfun.
I don't know that I'd call sitting on Smothering Tithe a responsible thing.
Well, what I'm saying is I took a 4-mana risk, right, to throw that down. I politicked it through. I got it into play. Everyone else feeds into it by, being greedy, drawing cards they shouldn't, whatever, right? And then the player before me will go, oh, Dockside. I'll look around the table and be like, who's got Counterspell? No one. Shocker, right? Because creature counterspells are at a premium. So then there's little bitchy EBs. And then
I will say
all my work that I set up, and you saw it too, right? When you build up your treasures.
I will say I loved not having to worry about Smothering Tithe.
Yeah,
I love not having to worry about that.
I just think that it created weird play patterns where it was like the player on Dockside never had to take any risks.
No.
Like it literally was, I'm just going to sit here and then, I play Dockside, I win.
Yeah.
Like, and I hated that play pattern. It was so unskilled. Because it wasn't even like they were waiting till optimal moments or anything. There's no optimal moment. You just like, oh, it's early enough. It's 2 mana. I'll jam and make 13 and win. Sure.
I mean, there is the risk that if you get stopped, it gets cloned and the next guy wins.
Yeah, but that was happening anyway because everybody ran Dockside. So it was just like either it's getting cloned or someone else already tutored for theirs and they're doing the exact same thing.
That's fair.
I mean, even when I played Nagila, that's all I did. I literally for the first tournament I ever took it to, like halfway through the tournament, I realized every game was, the first tutor should always just be Dockside. There's literally no other card ever. It's always just Dockside.
I think we had that talk. I was trying to talk you through a breach line or a post ad nause line, and you're like, what do I tutor for? What do I tutor for? I was like, Jordan.
It's always Dockside.
Jordan, look at the cards. It's Dockside.
It was always Dockside. And I think that became my like singular issue with the card.
Yeah.
Is every situation was always just Dockside.
Yeah.
My Niv deck was so dumb. It was literally every card.
Displacer Kitten Dockside was diabolical.
But it literally, I stuck every card in the deck that actually finds Dockside. It was that's all it was.
Finds Dockside and clones Dockside and flickers Dockside.
Yeah. I was like, that's all this format is Dockside.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just so glad it's gone because it let so many other decks breathe.
I can see that.
So
I can respect that. I don't think it should come back. This is not an advocacy for it should come back. I just don't think.
Well, people are arguing with me in the Twitter that like that was the number one thing was like, we just need to unban. And I was like, that is so not the solution. Like, did we create new problems?
Oh, sure.
Did we solve a lot of other problems? Also, yes.
I think more diversity of the format is good. I think solving for that is healthy, and I'm okay with that.
Do you think we created more diversity?
By banning Dockside?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
100%. And I think creating that diversity is good.
Like, I think about it, Rogthras was kind of there on the fringe, but it was very much a fringy deck.
You lost me.
Well, it was very much a fringier deck in the Dockside meta, which is interesting because you had like the Rogthras bouncy house, but I never saw it like too much. The most common one was Dargothras. That was like the most common teamer deck.
That's true.
For like you obviously Nadu left the format, which was probably good for the format as a whole. The tournament structure just could not handle Nadu.
No.
That card took way too many game actions. Also seen less Krark Saka, which I think is also good for the format because that also monopolized time.
I think there just became better Storm decks to play. I don't think that's a function of Dockside. I think
but all the Storm decks
format just evolved beyond
but
it.
all the Storm decks do not monopolize time in the same way. Like even if you play against a Ral, they either get there very quickly or they don't.
That's my point, though. Things like Ral were printed, and Krark Saka, people just moved on from Krark Saka to different commanders.
But Krark Saka,
it wasn't a function of Dockside. It was a function of different cards were printed.
Well, I still think Krark Saka would be popular with Dockside. I do think Dockside hurt that deck a lot. Also, losing like Crypt and Jeweled Lotus hurt the deck.
That hurt. That probably hurt it more than Dockside.
Because they needed those cards to like get their commanders out really quickly and start doing the Krark Saka thing.
They did.
But like that deck, I hated playing against that deck because it also took like 40 minutes to get through their turn because they're like flip, flip, flip. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys.
Well, also other people's turns, right? Fierce, flip, back down, fierce, flip, back up, fierce, right? Like,
I've literally...
the free spells were ridiculous.
I've literally seen it like take them 7 times to get it. And I'm like, because they'll be like, well, you know, it's free. So like, do we want to waste time? And it's like, well, that guy's got a Ristic study. So you're going to have to feed his Ristic every time you cast it. And they sure would. Dupe. I'm like, oh my God.
I played a game. I tried to go through a breach line and it was breach straight into brain freeze, praying on God to get the LED. And the Karksaka player had the natty D-SWAT and D-SWATted every single one of my brain freezes away. It was so sad.
That's actually kind of funny.
So sad.
But like, yeah, I think like a lot of those decks fell off. I don't think, if you look at the stats too, Kinnan was falling hard at the end there. Because Dadu basically took its spot as the Summit King.
Yeah.
And its win rate right before the bans was abysmal. It was so bad.
We need to go back to those days. Actually, the more we talk about it, send us back to those days.
Because basically Kinnan came back on the up. Rockdrass became more of a like meta deck where it was kind of like on that fringier tier. TNT jumped back up. Sisay kind of has hovered in this weird spot of like,
I feel like it tanked initially post Dockside.
I think so, too.
Everyone said Sisay is cooked.
It's back,
and it's
though.
been on a steady incline ever since.
Tim DeCrom and Roxai, I think, held their spots just fine.
Yeah.
So, like, when I think about the format, we also got some new ones in there. Vivi, Kefka have entered the fray, which helps. So, I think the meta changed. I also wonder, like, with Dockside especially, Kefka would be all over the place.
It would be.
There'd be so much Kefka.
So great.
There'd be so much damn Kefka. No, because no one would have hands. That would be a toxic. Could you imagine sitting in a four pod?
Kefka pod?
Or like a 3 Kefka pod with like the one poor soul that doesn't. And he's like, guys, please stop.
It's like a Sisay deck. They have no chance of interacting with all that Grixis. They're just, I don't have hands.
I don't think any deck would have a chance. Like you're just stuck. So
there's not enough creature counter spells to deal with all the Kefkas that would immediately hit the board. Give us J-Lo back. Please, whoever is out there, unleash J-Lo.
They're never gonna do it. Out of sheer spite and principle.
I know.
I don't know. I could see them doing it one day.
A girl can dream. Let a girl dream.
All right. We probably spent too long on this topic. So you want to get to the main discussion today?
Sure.
All right. So we get told all the time. Well, maybe I get told all the time. I guess you're kind of a part of the problem most of the time. Your turbo decks.
I love being the problem.
A lot of people, when they reach out for coaching, the one question I get asked so often is, how do I survive turbo meta? And it's something we've talked about, I think, a little bit on here.
I think so.
I think we answered some of it in our first video, but it was just kind of like touching on some of the aspects of it. So today, I'm going to walk you through kind of the 3 primary ways that I survive turbo, mostly running more of a mid-range deck. The first and most important one is don't be greedy. Second one is table talk, but not too much table talk. And the third one is you have to know exactly how to stop them. So we're going to walk through all 3 of those, and then that should help you give you the tools to stop the turbo meta. Sometimes, though, I'll be honest, if you're the mid-range deck and you're in seat 4 and there's 3 turbos ahead of you, God bless. God bless you. May God have mercy on your soul, because it's...
Keep a pact of negation and force a draw.
Even that's not going to work.
It's not.
It's really not. Somebody's just going to say, no, I don't care. Because, I don't know, like 3 turbo decks? Oof.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever won a pod where it's 3 straight turbo decks. I'm trying to think. Hold on.
I think you have. I think we've talked about this.
Wait, I have.
You have.
It's not fun, though. It requires so much politicking. You end up having to, like, politic your booty off.
Yeah. The Jordan Drake special.
That's not fun, though. I don't like politicking that much. That's too much politicking. I have a limit, right? I will usually yap when I feel like things need to be said. Mm-hmm. But for the most of the game, I'm okay to like just sit there and be in my little corner and do my thing. Mm-hmm. Like when I do yap, I try to be as effective with it as possible. But I'm not someone who's gonna run my mouth all game long, right? I'm not that. Right. It's just not my style. But man, in those triple pods, it's why I don't like Kinnan, by the way. Like why I hate playing Kinnan, because if I play Kinnan, I feel like I have to talk the entire game because everyone always points the finger at me. They're like, you're at 7 mana. And I'm like, guys, not a flip deck. Chill. So it's like unless I feel like I seize the initiative and start doing all the yapping myself.
Yeah.
That way I can deflect constantly from Kitten. That's why I hate playing the deck. Like, the deck is cool, but man, you have to politic like crazy. Mm-hmm. And then same thing if you're in a triple turbo, you're like, guys, I can't do this all game long. Like, I'm gonna be hoarse by the end of this 80 minutes. So yeah, those are the tips we're gonna give them to you. Let's go. All right, so first up, don't get greedy. I think this is the most key thing you have to do as a mid-range deck. When you sit down at a pot and you're up against one turbo deck, even that, I know you're going to be tempted. I get it. You're like, all right, I'm in seat 4. There's a turbo deck in seat 1. I can be greedy here. I've done it before. I promise you it doesn't work. Every time I've done it, I've been burnt because I looked at seats 2 and 3 and they went, and I go, funny how that works. Can't believe y'all were up waiting for seat 4 to do something. Don't do it. I understand the temptation. Like I said, the problem with being greedy here is unless you have convinced the other 2 players, and you know it, you've convinced the other 2 players to go follow along with your plan to stop the turbo deck. We'll get into table talks here in a second. But I really want to focus in on the individual because I think this is where a lot of players just get into the trouble. You don't want to keep a hand that is just playing the game, right? Where you have no agency about what the opponents do. I think people fall into this trap. If you find that that's happening to you a lot, it's either one, a deck building issue, right? Your deck does not run enough interaction. Interaction can come in all shapes and sizes, right? Even if you're running like a Dranith, that isn't necessarily interaction, but it does stop players. And so if you're running pieces like this to where you can slow down early win attempts and really just make it harder for these turbo decks to get going, that counts, right? You run a Deafening Silence and you're playing against Ral and Rog and I don't know, somebody else that's stopped by it. I can't think of another deck right now, but like
TNK.
Sure, right? Yeah, I guess kind of TNK.
A little bit.
Yeah, they can't breach.
Yeah, exactly.
So like running against like decks like that, right? Where it's like, okay, I drop a card that really slows everybody down. That's not interaction, but it kind of counts for the purposes of this conversation. And so that's kind of what we're talking about. You don't want to be in a position where you have no agency about what is happening in the game. You're kind of at the, I'm going to yap my opponents into doing everything for me. Great. Sometimes that works, but if your opponents didn't keep anything because they also decide to be greedy, now everybody doesn't have agency except for the player currently winning. So you really want to put yourself in a position to where your hand gives you agency over the game. Agency also means that you play the game. If you're sitting on 3 counter spells, you have some kind of agency, but you have no agency over if you win or not. Not really. At that point, you're playing for draw, which we don't want to be doing. I know what we said at the beginning of this, that players in seat 4 will play for draw, and that sometimes I do that. It's more nuanced than that. The reality is I'm always trying to win. Wins are so much better than draws. If you think about it this way, this is like a perfect way to think about it. In a 6-round tournament, right? If I go 2-0-4 and get 14 points, cool, right? That's probably good enough most of the time.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? But if I go 3-3-0, that's more points. It's more losses, but it's also more points. So a lot of times being aggressive and taking the extra losses to get an extra win is worth it. I will trade 3 losses for a win. Or I'll trade 3 draws for a win any day of the week and turn those into losses. 100%. Right? As long as you give me 1 win for that. Draws are worthless. Draws are always worthless, in my opinion. Even when, like, the only time I'm ever taking draw is if it locks me, right? If I'm on the bubble after a few rounds and things didn't go my way and I took 2 draws that I didn't want to, I'm like on the bubble, I'm like, okay, does a draw lock me, like 100% lock me? Doesn't put me on the bubble. I'm not taking a draw to go on the bubble.
Right.
Personally, not doing it. I've been burned too many times. I've watched other players get burned too many times. Literally, it happened at our last tournament, the 20K CCS. Was that our last tournament? Yeah, I guess that was.
It was. It's been a minute for us.
Dang, yeah, we have not gotten to play much.
We need to get out there.
That's a great example. Our players in the final round didn't want to play. Right? Everyone took draw, and then they were like, oh, we'll be on the bubble. They weren't. I don't even think they were on the bubble. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look, but I don't even think they were on the bubble. And I think that happens too often. We always think we know what the bubble's going to be.
Oh, yeah.
But it shifts a couple points every tournament. So like some tournaments it's 12 if you're playing like 6 rounds, right? Some tournaments it's 12, sometimes it's 11, sometimes it's 13.
Everybody becomes a tournament math master, or at least tries to, right? And then the bubble's never what you expect it to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of predictable from, 5-rounder to 5-rounder, but there's always outliers.
And that's my point, is I don't want to take draws. So this kind of goes back to my original point. I was getting on a tangent a little bit there, but the original point is you want to keep a hand that gives you agency. So that means stopping players from winning, being able to convert to wins yourself, or being able to at least draw cards to convert to wins. Mm-hmm. So like if I keep a hand that's counter magic and a Thoracle Consult, that's fine, right? That's the plan. I'm going to wait for my optimal moment to slam a win. I already have the win in hand, so now I just have to wait for my optimal moment, right? If I keep a hand that's like an Esper Sentinel, a piece of interaction, a bunch of mana, and I have a deck that can convert mana to card draw, cool.
That's a plan.
That's a plan. That's a decent plan. It's not a great plan, right? It's no, turn one Rhystic Study, but it's a plan. It's a good one. Mm-hmm. It's a solid plan. Better than most of the time. If I'm going, land, bird, or what's land, bird, rock, right? Mm-hmm. And then turn 2 is a Tymna. That's not bad.
It's not bad.
Turn 2 Tymna is fine.
Especially if you can hold up a Fierce or some type of piece of interaction, you're probably all right.
Like, there's plenty of times when you can... I think players generally know what is a playable hand, but I think a lot of times players struggle with, like, okay, I have interaction, I get to stop the turbo deck, but then they don't think of the now what, right? So being greedy... And the other side of that coin is the being greedy part, where it's like, oh, I do all this cool stuff, right? But if they slam win on your face in turn 2, where are you at?
Yeah.
Right? Where are you at?
Yeah.
Again, I think I've used this example a lot, right? But the Marnius player that dropped a turn 2 Smothering Tithe, and then there's in seat 2, and then Ral 1 on from seat 1, turn 3, you never saw a turn with all your treasures. Mm-hmm. You never got to cast the Marnius. You didn't have an interaction hand. That is a greedy hand. You cannot keep greed there, right? Even one counterspell stops Ral. Actually, hard stops Ral that game. Mm-hmm. Didn't keep it, right? Like, that's the problem with the greedy hands. You cannot rely on your opponents to play the game for you. And I think too often people think that they're either master politicers and they can politic away all day long, and they can keep the greedy hands and be like, oh, well, it won't be my problem.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, I think a lot in getting greedy, right? This goes along with the don't get greedy. In getting greedy, people underestimate the turbo deck.
Yes.
So in that situation, that individual that dropped that tithe probably thought, well, I'll get my turn 3. Mm-hmm. They won't win by then. They don't have the setup. Maybe the turbo deck mulliganed low, right? People get into this trap of underestimating the turbo deck, and either to justify their greed, or maybe that's why they were greedy in the first place, or that's just coping, whatever it is, they justify this and say, well, the turbo deck won't have it.
Yeah.
But turbo decks are the decks inherently designed to have it, right? They run so much gas and tutors and rituals to get to whatever their point is, And even a Rogsai deck on a Mole to 5, Dark Rit Necro.
Yep.
What are you going to do about it? Badlands, Dark Rit, Necro. No tutor, no anything. Or land, next turn, land, rock, Thoracle Consult. And those decks are the kind of decks that are designed to just have that. So even Rogsai, Ral, Vivi, Atali on low mulligans, those decks are designed to get to those gas engines and just slam on you. So assuming that you'll get another turn, and assuming that a turbo deck isn't going to do the thing, is going to lose you more games. And assuming that the decks aren't going to have it and getting greedy is going to lose you a lot of games. Because I'm sure you hear it after every Magic game, right? Well, if I just had another turn. Oh man, I got turn 2'd, but if I got back to my turn, on God, I was winning. You hear that after every round at every Magic tournament everywhere. But what are you doing to get to that next turn? Could you have kept interaction? I mean, a triple turbo pod, baby. Could you have kept interaction, right? Could you have held mana up instead of tapping out for some flashy engine and casting the engine next turn after stopping the turbo deck, right? It's what are you doing to get to your next game action instead of saying, oh, well, I needed another turn. But the reality is you tapped out and you gave the turbo player a window.
Yeah. And that's the problem. You have to be really thinking that they always have it.
Exactly.
Right? I think too many players have the other side of that where they're like, no, they won't have it.
Exactly.
It's
they
weird.
underestimate the turbo deck.
It's I don't even know that they're underestimating it. It's just it's like a cognitive dissonance that exists where it's like they're not going to have it this time, right? And you fool yourself with that thought of they're not going to have it this time.
Those decks are designed to have it. That's the point, right?
I mean, I've seen people keep greedy hands and do like seat 1, first 7 decks, and I'm like, why? Why are you keeping this hand? After the game, I'm like, what possessed you to keep such a terrible hand?
Yeah.
Or like, they make the craziest gambles. I remember there was a game where it was a seat 1 Ral, seat 2's Marnius, I'm in TNT seat 3, Tivit's in seat 4.
Okay.
The Tivit player gambled on a 1 ring of them not being able to win through a 1 ring. Like, gambled on that at premise. Cast it, tapped out to do it, gambled on that idea.
On the Ral not being able to win through a 1 ring? Oh.
That is a crazy
That's
gamble.
a crazy gamble.
The crazy part is it worked.
Did it?
Kind of.
They didn't have a way to win through 1 ring protection?
No.
Okay. Well,
I don't know that they do.
not that crazy of a gamble.
I don't know that the deck actually does, to be honest.
We were being judgmental. Not that crazy of a gamble,
Well,
actually.
it is a crazy gamble because you also have to, it's not just about,
You have to assume their deck has outs, that they know how to play around the 1 ring at this point.
but it's not even just that, right? If you let someone go infinite, in theory, they should find a way to still kill you in upkeep.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
It's like giving the green player infinite green mana and them saying, well, I don't have an outlet. You're going to find the outlet. Or you're going to find the way to the outlet.
Right.
You don't let somebody just go
I don't know.
infinite.
I've had infinite green before and not been able to win. It's actually extraordinarily frustrating. But like, you're right. Most of the time, I can immediately convert that to win.
Yeah.
I think in this game, the player got super flustered and probably just missed his ways to like win. But I feel like if you brain freeze yourself out and you have a breach, there's got to be ways to just find everything. Maybe there's not. Maybe not in Ral.
I don't know Ral well enough.
I don't know either.
I don't know the intricacies of the win cons well enough to talk through that.
We'll have to ask Hayward. I'm actually curious of this question now. But like,
Expert opinion, not us.
but like, if you had a 1 ring player up, how would you win instead? I mean, in theory, instead of brain freezing yourself, you just brain freeze me and the Marnies player out 1v1 the Tivit. But at that point, you're winning the 1v1 very handedly.
Exactly.
So like, that's where I was confused by the play. We ultimately had to convince the Tivit player to take draw because initially the Ral player, because he got so flustered and everything, he was going to brain freeze me and the Marnies player out. And then I kind of pointed at him and said, I don't think you beat Tivit anymore. Because your whole debt library is gone and he hadn't figured out a way to put it back, which again, I don't know if there is or not, but like, I feel like there is.
And is it? I don't know that there is.
Well, he shouldn't have brain freezed himself out at that point.
No,
but
that's, yeah.
Either way, I was literally saying, okay, I think at this point you leave us alive because the Tivit player is no longer accepting draw. Because the guy tried to draw.
That's some expert level, yeah.
Well, it's not even...
Leave us alive. Leave us alive.
Well, if he's going to lose his whole library, it makes sense, right? Like, you have to keep us alive to help now fight for draw in this game. Because the Tivit player did not want to draw. Basically got to the point where it was like, okay, I've got a Brewmaster combo. Tivit player did not have enough interaction to stop my Brewmaster combo. The other two had enough interaction to protect the Brewmaster combo if they wanted to. But they were just kind of like, we're just not going to fight it. But I had enough interaction to protect it myself as long as they didn't interfere. So then the guy's like, okay, well,
forced to draw.
Well, now we'll have to draw. I was like, okay, that works for me because getting out of this game with a draw after Ral went infinite is pretty miraculous at this point. Which is like, you know, again, I hate draws, but those are one of those situations where you just kind of take it and go, well, I should have lost. I expected to lose.
Yeah. You take those, right? I mean, at the end of the day, a point is still better than no points. And in a pod like that, you're happy to get a point and just keep going.
But I think my point there was that is a greedy play playing the 1 ring because you are, unless you just know your opponent's Ral deck in and out and know that they have no way around it.
They got very lucky not to just lose on the spot right there.
Or to put himself in such a position, like, because if I'm in that position, I might not brain freeze myself out, but I'm going to put every engine I have and just go nuts as soon as it goes to your upkeep. I'm just going to start doing everything, right? Like, in theory.
Yeah.
I don't, maybe the deck can't do that, but like, I've seen Hayward win through some crazy stacks that I feel like it can.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
And I mean, I'm sure you could get it to a point where the Tivit player doesn't have a board, they don't have any creatures, there's a way to nuke Tivit off despite the ward cost. Like, I'm sure there are ways to just absolutely cook that person's board and say, okay, pass turn. Cool. You can't do anything. I kept interaction in my hand. Let's go.
Yeah.
So let's go again. We'll go to my turn.
That's what I assume. I don't know. Maybe, like I said, maybe the deck can't, but...
I don't know the intricacies of it well enough, but I think you probably can.
But, like, that was another game where I don't know what it is with these Esper decks. Not keeping interaction for a RAW player. And I'm sitting here like, guys, how am I the only one that kept a piece of interaction?
Yeah.
Like, you can't expect me to fight these decks on my own, right? So it's just... These are the situations that I think players find themselves in. And if you're playing these greedy battles and you're wondering why you and your pod are constantly losing, it's probably because of that, right? It's probably because people are playing too greedy. I also think there's a problem with the EDH the Critical League and casual play not being an accurate reflection of how tournaments actually play out.
Right.
Right. And I think that skews some of these decisions when people are like, okay, well, I don't know how to play against Turbo because every time I play a Turbo deck in the Crit League, because I hear that a lot, or I play with my play group, the Turbo players just tell me to go screw myself and jam anyway, right? Or they're like, it doesn't matter how much we table talk or how good my hand is. The Turbo players just say, nope, I'm gonna go. I really want to be careful with how I word this, but like, those are not accurate reflections of how a tournament actually plays out. The reason behind that is because you could always just play again. You can't always just play again in a tournament. If I have 5 rounds and I'm a Turbo player and I say, screw it, I'm going to jam knowing that I'm probably going to lose, the calculus is just so different. If I lose a game in the Crit League, who cares? I lose, I spin up another one, I go again. If I play with my local play group, I lose, who cares? I spin up and play again. That creates these bad play patterns that people realize are not, I think are not reflective of how a tournament would actually play out. Because if I'm the Turbo player and I'm in a bad spot and I'm like, I jam anyway just to see, maybe I get through. But like the reality is in a tournament, it's not going to work. And now you've just wasted a round that you needed to win because you only have so many limited, right? I can play unlimited games the other way. As long as I've got time, I can keep playing and keep jamming.
People are so much more careful in tournaments. We talk about this a lot where people play not to lose. And sometimes, they don't play to win. And that's maybe a portion of the draw issue that we discussed. But for the most part, people are very good at playing not to lose. But when playing online, especially over Spell Table in a league where you can just spin up and play again, players are incentivized to be a lot more reckless because on those Turbo decks where you can just kind of say, oh, okay, cool, I go again. If you're going faster than the table, right, and especially if you have a higher seat order, you're probably going to get a lot of wins that way. You're probably going to see pretty Turbo heavy top portions of the Crit League. And I haven't actually studied the metrics of it to know how Turbo slanted these top 16s are. But if you're a Turbo deck, you're incentivized to do that online when you can spin up again. In person at actual tournaments where you can't do that and where people are playing not to lose, that strategy is going to bite you more than it's going to get you anywhere. Because generally, for the most part, pods will play not to lose to the Turbo deck. Somebody will have that conversation of, hey, do you know what Ral does? Hey, do you know what happens when an Atali resolves? Do you understand why we shouldn't let this happen? Keep interaction, cool. Generally somebody will have that conversation. And that's just not happening online. Partly because of a function of online play, right? It's more difficult to table talk in the same way you would in person, but partly because people can be greedy and just go to the next game and still have a pretty decent win rate if they jam enough and get there enough.
At the end of the day, there's these places are still valuable to practice out your lines and stuff. I just don't think people should be taking it as the end all be all for why is my deck not performing? It's just not going to be an accurate reflection.
Yeah, they're fun games. It's great to jam, but different than tournament play.
Which kind of leads us into our next point, table talk. It's not happening enough. I still see it. I preach it all the time. If you're sitting down with at least one Turbo deck at the table, you should be talking before the game. I think we've said it on this channel now a couple times. You have to be talking because not everybody understands. Let me back this up. Players are new, inexperienced, or just aren't paying attention, right? These are all factors when players sit down. Sometimes people get really tunnel visioned into what they're doing that they don't really think about how their hand interacts with the rest of the table. So I think that's that's almost what Turbo decks are banking on, is playing against inexperienced players, players that don't really talk all that much and don't really know where to interact and are playing against players that get too tunnel vision into what their own hands are doing and don't really care about the table. And so because of that issue, TurboDecks run away with these games that they otherwise probably would not be winning. So like the one thing you can do to gain agency at the table over TurboDeck is talk. Sit down and immediately say, hey guys, are we all going to mulligan for the TurboDeck? Like, are we all going to talk about, like, are we all good to be somewhat responsible here? I've only had it happen one time where a player didn't want to table talk with me, and I don't know why. This dude was just being weird. It made no sense. Mm-hmm. Was like I literally was like, hey, are we all going to mulligan responsibly? And the dude was like, and just stared me down, and I was like, okay, whatever, sure, yeah. Like, be weird about it. It made no sense in the moment. It still doesn't make sense even when I think about it. Like, what am I trying to gain advantage here? Like, I'm also doing the same thing. Like, I'm committing to the same bit.
Right.
And I did, right? I'm the only one who actually kept the hand that actually stopped the player from going nuts.
Right.
And I needed other people's help to, like, stop the Rowan player, because that's what it was. It was Rowan. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But, like, you know, generally, like, other than that one time, players are willing to have an open discussion about how we're going to stop TurboDecks, because especially for all mid-range decks, we all want to get to the mid-range game too. We want to grind our value. We don't want to get stopped on turn 2 because the turbo deck went nuts. And we all just kind of sat there, you know, twiddling our thumbs going, well, I guess we didn't have it.
And that's where you can play on the fact that people are playing not to lose. You look at people and you say, hey, do we, you know, looking across another mid-range player, you say, you know, we want to get to turn 3. Our decks are great at turn 3 and turn 4. In order to get that, you need a mulligan for interaction. And I'll do the same, right? We're in this together. I'll be responsible as well. But if you don't want to lose, we need to do X, Y, Z or mulligan for X piece. And You're right. Generally, people are amenable to that. But what is being responsible, I think, is defined differently for different people. What? I've seen some very greedy, responsible hands.
I've seen some people just straight lie about it, where they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm responsible," and then I'll look at them and they'll be like, "Okay."
I've had that happen a lot as well too.
Like, sure, like I get that you don't want to give up information pre-game, but I do think that if you're going to sit at a table with a turbo pod and not want to lose the turbo player, you can't be the mid-range player that wants to be squirrely and sneaky about it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to work. You're just going to get got, because it's almost like that the dilemma a little bit we talked about a couple weeks ago, where it's like, you know, if I hit a button, I've seen it on a couple like game shows too, right? Where it's like, we can either split the prize together or we can steal it from each other. But if we both hit the steal button, then none of us get anything. It feels like CEDH players are constantly all hitting the steal button and we're all getting nothing while the turbo player laughs their way to the bank, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what's happening. We should all be hitting the split button together, right? We all want to be in this together, but somebody always wants to be the little greedy guy who's like, I'm going to hit the steal button because I want it all for myself. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to lose more than you're going to win. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that not having agency, it's different than if you talk other people into using their interaction. But if you are going to deprive yourself of agency by being so greedy that your opening hand does nothing else besides, you know, like let's throw out a ton of mana, but it's going to take you a couple turns to convert that mana into cards. Or let's say it's like, I'm going to tap out for this Ristic Study, but I only have like 2 cards that are free in my deck, right? Like 3.
And that's the thing I've seen people do. I've had the, hey, we cool to be irresponsible talk. Yeah, they tap out for a turn 2 Ristic Study, right? And then Atali goes, and Atali flips, I think it's like Wishclaw, Imperial Seal, Defense Grid. You know what the Ristic player did? Absolutely nothing.
I mean, it makes sense.
Nothing for the Atali, nothing for the Defense Grid, nothing for the tutors, right? That's not being responsible.
I mean, it makes sense, right? You're in the single-digit percentages of actually drawing a card that stops anything at any point.
Yeah.
And it's like low single percentages, because you've got most decks are running Mind Break, Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pact. I think Mental Misstep, but Misstep doesn't stop a lot.
Yeah.
So like it's generally 4 cards that are your catches, and Pact you can't usually cast early, so it's worthless. Mind Break needs very specific terms. So it literally comes down to 2 cards. 2 cards in your entire deck that actually stop somebody from just going.
And Force of Neg doesn't hit creatures.
Right. So if it's like, you know, if I go. Right. And I mean, sometimes a Mental Misstep comes into handy here, right? Because if they're Dark Gridding Necro, you can hit the Dark Grid. Yep. Right. Or if they ride a Flame into something else and then try to go crazy like that, right? Like I've seen one person when they went right into flame into what's like the second tier one where it gives you the 3 for 2 red.
Is it
not
Seething Song?
Is it Seething Song?
I think it's Seething Song.
Yeah. Something like that, right? And then they had like another mana to get them to the Geo Surge, and it was like, okay, sure. And then Atali, and you're like, all right, turn 2 Atali, here we go.
Yep.
Let's hope you don't flip anything good.
Yep.
Thankfully, I've been lucky, and it was like dork, counterspell, and I'm like, whew.
Yeah, no, the Atali in my game, tutor defense grid.
Yeah, that's...
Heuristic study player, nothing to say about it. Cool.
You can't expect them to, right? I think that's the problem with...
But that's the problem with the be responsible conversation sometimes. We need to be clear what responsible... In that case, responsibility is a silence or a mind break trap. Responsibility is not, I'm going to sit on my heuristic study and try to win the game later. There is no later to win the game.
Well, that's why my conversations are more now like, hey, are we going to be responsible? Like, are we going to keep interaction for this player? Or like, are we going to actually do something to stop them? Or are we just going to let them have the game? Right? And generally, people are, again, receptive to this conversation. Like I said, I've only had it happen one time where someone was just like not receptive to it. And it was like, okay, whatever. And we did not lose to Rowan, but that's because I was responsible. And we ended up playing a very long game that the kid ultimately won in the end.
Yeah.
But like I think most of the time, like these conversations I think are really good too. And especially too, if it's like a player that you know is going to talk a lot, you can have the same kind of conversations. But I think at the end of the day, it's not just table talk at the beginning too. So have the conversation pregame, talk about like what hands we all think we should keep. I sat down with double Ral and me and the other player looked at each other and we shared our opening hands, right? We literally worked together to get to turn 3. And then we said, after that, y'all, we're on our own, right? The alliance is broken and we're going to do our own thing. But like, we needed to figure out how to get to turn 3 at least, because Ral's was in seat 1 and 2. Blue Farm seat 3, me in seat 4, right? Like that is a terrible, I'm always in seat 4 against Ral, I realize, by the way. That is a terrible place to be though. And we were just sitting there like, God, what do we do? Like, how do we get out of the situation? And we're literally to the point where I'm like, brother, do you just want to show each other our hands? Like, we'll talk about our opens and figure out how we can play. We can work together to stop double Ral.
Yeah.
And I think the other key thing is, and I talk about this a lot, I think a lot, is keeping them in paralysis when you are playing against multiple turbo sets. I think one turbo deck should never win against 3 mid-range decks. That should never happen, right? As long as, because generally it only takes one responsible individual, but hopefully all 3 people have been responsible and you have enough interaction to stop the turbo player.
Right.
Now, double turbo gets a little trickier, right? But I still think the most effective politicking tool we have is just paralysis against each other, right? Nobody wants to lose a game. So if between us we can stop one player, well, now they have to play chicken against each other. Whoever blinks first loses the game. So, but they also have to eventually jam into our engines, right? So you put the turbo players into a weird spot because they lose. The first person to go loses either way. So now you have to hope one of them blinks, or the turbo players. Sorry, not we. The turbo players have to hope the other one blinks. And we're allowed to develop. So like the only way when you're a turbo deck to beat that is to hopefully have enough interaction to beat through not just 2 mid-range decks, but you still have to account for the turbo deck holding up interaction as well. So that creates these weird interactions. Good turbo players can still play through this and win. I've seen it happen.
That's the thing. It's enough interaction or enough gas just to keep going.
Right.
Oh, you countered one thing? Okay, on to the next. Oh, that's gone? Okay, on to the next.
Right. And that's what makes certain turbo deck's so scary, right? That's why we talk like a lot about Ral, because unless you kill Ral just keeps going.
Yep.
Every turn they're just, here's another, and here's another, and here's another, and I'm just going to keep chaining spells together.
And Roxai with the right setup, I've seen it just chain spells and chain tutors together until they just get there, you know?
I mean, Holly's always one draw away too, or one good flip away from just chaining everything together and winning. So, yeah, I mean, turbo...
Vivi drops a curiosity on you and you aren't ready for that, you're gone.
Yeah.
You're pretty cooked at that point.
These decks are really good, and I think that's kind of the point we're making here, though, is when you're talking at the table, you just have to continuously be kind of reminding people who the threat is, because as the games do progress, sometimes people lose sight of the turbo decks and forget that these decks can still turn on a dime and win on the spot, right? That they've probably been sitting on win for a couple turns, and if people started blinking right late in the game when, like Lily was saying kind of earlier in the show, like, okay, heuristic studies have been dropped, people are battling on the stack, oh, here's the, the Rogside player who we all thought was dead in the water 3 turns ago, from the top rope, Valley Flood Caller, Underworld Breaching, and you're like, whoa, where did you come from? I thought I left you behind a while ago.
That's the thing. Just because it gets beyond turn 3 or turn 4, just because you've survived and you've successfully not been greedy and yapped the table into not being greedy with you, that doesn't mean you're out of the woods. That just means you're at a more optimized window and they're at they're slightly less advantaged, but that doesn't mean you're out of the woods with them either.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you just set yourself up better. But as long as you're having table talk around it and you're constantly you don't have to constantly be politicking, but you do need to constantly be kind of noting what's going on and be ready to talk about, oh, hey, we should probably not let the Rogside player do this. Or, hey, the Ral player is actually scarier here than y'all realize. Maybe they dropped a Bergie or something. You just have to constantly be doing that. And as long as you're doing that, you're going to be okay. You're going to be in a position where you can win more games. Again, just paralyze them against each other. Show the counter magic and be like, I can stop you, and I'm going to stop you, and then that turbo player is going to win. It works. It works because what else is that turbo player supposed to do? Lose to the other turbo player? No. So it works. Right? So the last one. Actually knowing what to counter, because I've seen it so many times where players get got by turbo players because they did not know what to actually stop. And in fact, we're going to pull up a video from our Monolith series that we released yesterday. We're going to bring this back from last week. We got some good positive feedback on it, so we figured we'd do it again. And unfortunately, we're going to show off our buddy Tim here and the poor mistake he made. So at this moment in the game, our buddy, Hayward has decided to go off, as Ral does, as we've talked about a lot. Hayward is a very, very good Ral player. So if he can figure out a line here, which, spoiler alert, he does because of the mistakes, we're going to be in trouble. So at this point in the game, if you look here, Tim decides he's going to into the Flood Maw the Ral. Now, in theory, this should be good. Stopping Ral usually actually comes down to just killing Ral. Counting their spells generally doesn't actually do anything. People don't realize that because if they have the mana to keep chaining stuff together, generally if they've got a Bergie, a Tavern Scoundrel, or a Ska, Stormkiln Artist for those who are uninitiated, then you're in trouble, right? These are the 3 of their best cards in the deck, and people get an Electro as well.
Yes.
Yeah, the new one. The Spider-Man card, that's also just a Bergie, but a better Bergie, bad Bergie,
Worse
whatever.
Bergie.
Yeah, because Bergie's got backside.
Yeah.
Backside Bergie's busted.
Harnfell.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss for Harnfell.
So if they've got one of these 4 cards on the field, they are running away with the game without anyone realizing it, because it literally only takes one for them to start the chaining all their spells together, right? If there's a Troger on the field, Atali's going nuts. That one's a little bit more obvious, but some of these cards, kind of obvious. Either way, in this situation, Hayward's already got a nice setup. So bouncing the Ral here, generally the right move. Killing Ral stops the Ral nonsense. You can't chain as much because now spells cost 1 more again, and you just don't get the same value because you're not flipping Ral, so you're not getting the Tavern Scoundrel trigger. However, because of the Bergie, this is kind of a moot point here, and he already got the treasures. So by into the Flood Mawing Ral here, Tim's made a crucial error. Well, let me step back. He actually made a crucial error when he did not play the Spire of Industry in his hand, which would have opened up his white, which would have let him silence Ral going into this turn and would have stopped Ral straight in the tracks and set Tim up for success. Didn't do that. So now on to Tim's second mistake. Tim, I'm sorry, you made a lot of mistakes in this round, and it's going to feel like a roast. It's not. We're teaching. This is a teaching channel.
Crazy.
The second mistake that was made, though, is using the Into the Flood Maw. I think Tim is actually in a better spot, in theory, if he just holds up a bunch of interaction and chokes the mana down the line. Because I do think there is a choke point that occurs, but the Into the Flood Maw is not a major mistake because he actually does have a chance to pinch Hayward off again. So he into the Flood Maws instead of holding up his Flusterstorm, which I still think may be the better call.
Probably.
Maybe. It's debatable.
It's debatable, but probably.
So the third mistake occurs then right here, where instead of using the Force of Will on the Ral, which would have been an optimal point to actually stopping the Ral from coming back down. At this point, I'm pretty sure Hayward stopped. Now, I don't know everything Hayward had in his hand, so maybe not. But at this point, Hayward does not have the mana to recast Ral. Now, we can see if he gets there, but his Tavern Scoundrel's turned off. So he's only on Bergie mana. All of his spells now cost 1 more again because he's lost the reduction from Ral. So now he's in a weird spot of how do you actually get into this position of actually stopping the Ral player. And I honestly think the Force of Will that Tim was sitting on would have been perfect here. Yeah. We know Hayward's sitting on a Deflecting Swap, but you also had interaction to interact there if it came to it. And it would have, I think Zeke would have had his interaction open as well.
I think so.
So I think, and again, if he holds the Volcanic Island up, oh no, because then you wouldn't, never mind.
Fire or Volcanic Island?
Well, it doesn't matter actually, because he had to use that to use the Into the Flood Maw.
Yeah.
The Silence action is perfect because then the Deflecting Swap doesn't come online.
Right.
But the Force of Will would have been perfect there.
Right.
It would have stopped Hayward in his tracks.
Funny part is, if I remember that game correctly, and I'm...
Oh, wait, you had a red Elemental Blast, so would it have mattered?
Well, I was going to say that, but also, I think I just had Glinthorn on my turn. So I think it would have been all that just for me to untap and go Glinthorn. I'm not sure if I had the red mana. I think red mana was my issue.
No, I'm pretty sure you did have the red mana. You had the treasures.
My lands were, I think it was Watery Grave and UC. I don't think I had the red for Glinthorn.
Oh, so you needed one more turn?
With the treasure and the land drop on my next turn, after Hayward's turn, I think I would have been able to Glinthorn them, which would have been hilarious.
Yeah. So here, Tim misses the Force of Will on the Ral. And even if Hayward is able to stop it, is just still a more optimal point to counter the Ral and force the interaction out here. Mm-hmm. Actually, because I think Tim had the Pact as well. So I think Tim was fine. I think Tim was fine if he just does it here.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're good, right? You're good. You stop Ral. You pass turn. You pray that you get back to your turn. Obviously, would not have. Lily would have just won. But it's okay because Glinthorn should never win.
Glinthorn beat you the other day. What are we talking about?
We don't talk about that.
You got greedy. You didn't take your own advice. You tapped out against a Grixis deck, and you immediately paid.
This is why we don't do this kind of.
We'll insert that footage when it goes live. We did it for somebody's channel, but when we have it and when it's on the internet, it will be here.
I refuse. I'm the editor. I refuse to put it in our channel. There will never be evidence of me losing to a Glinthorn on this channel.
I'll promote it in the comments, guys. Don't worry. You'll know when it comes out.
I control the comment section. I'll delete it. There is no evidence that I've ever lost to a Glinthorn, and there never will be.
I control the TikTok. I'll just clip it and put it on the TikTok.
Dang. I was actually realizing he's going to post it on his channel either way.
Yeah.
And I have no control over that.
It's going to be on the internet, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. That, again, don't be greedy, right? I shouldn't have tapped out. I had a Swift for her, which swifting her Glinthorn is one of my favorite things to do because it's so funny. Because it's like, yeah, it's a vehicle. You can't swing. If you can't swing, you can't do the ability. It works.
It would have been funny if you were left some white mana up.
I had it too. That was the thing. I even thought about it. I was like, nah, I'm going to develop instead. And let somebody. Here's the problem with being greedy. I tapped out, said someone else will handle it.
No one else handled it.
Nope. It was all me.
They got Minotaured.
But then we had it the second time. She tried it because she tried it the second game. And this time we did stop it. But at what cost?
Then you lost anyway. You got Rog Thrashed. Could have got Minotaured.
Y'all are going to watch this game? I had the nuttiest opening hand.
For not.
For nothing. It's because Abi Force of Willed Flare of Denial by Seedborn, which also cost him his win. What a terrible game. That game was so sad. I really thought no one... By the time I'm that deep into my line, I was like, surely no one's got interaction.
Can't let you have a Seedborn.
Because shouldn't have let me have a Derevi.
Shouldn't let you have anything.
Like, if we're being honest...
Here we are.
If we're being honest, I'm shocked I even got the Derevi.
Well, if I had something to say about it, I would have.
I know. But yeah, so, I mean, all this to say, right, that when you're playing against these decks, you have to know where the interaction points are, right? You have to know, okay, it's Irolic Ral. Mm-hmm. You have to know that I can let the Atali resolve in theory, depending on what interaction I have, and I just counter whatever Atali's flipping. But sometimes it's better just to counter the Atali. It really depends on what they have on board and what's going on, right? Like there are nuances to it. With Rogsai, you have to understand if they're sitting on 5 mana, open mana, you have to know in your head it's probably a nod's coming somewhere when you're least expecting it, right? trying to think of some other big turbo decks. Anala's kind of gained some steam lately.
Yeah.
Anala's got a bunch of weird wizard lines, but generally, if Spellseeker's out there, it's hit the Spellseeker, right? The Spellseeker cannot resolve, or you better have something that hits graveyards pretty quickly afterwards. Or an Oppo.
I say that just comes, this goes back to what we say a lot as well. It comes with knowledge of the decks that you're playing, and that just comes with time and the meta, time playing CEDH, time knowing these decks, because if you don't know to hit the Spellseeker in Anala, or that a Rogsai player may not have 5 mana up, but they may have tutored for a Dark Rit, so just showing a couple of lands can be scary if you know they have the ritual, right? It's this knowledge of what you're playing against, and that's what turbo decks are really good at exploiting at tables where people don't know what's going on. They're really good at saying, okay, I think I've slid under the radar now. Cool, we're going to go for it, and they're not going to see it coming.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason people call turbo decks Swiss killers, right? They win a lot in Swiss, but then, in theory, struggle more in the top 16, top 4 games because, in theory,
generally, people should allegedly be more responsible, maybe.
Well, in theory, it's better players than top 16, top 4. Yeah. Not always the case, but in theory, that's how it is.
Yeah.
And those players generally know how to play against more of these quicker decks and how to stop them. But sometimes you still get bad mulligans.
And greed can hit anybody. You can be greedy in the top 16 or top 4 game, right?
I've done it.
If you're in seat 1 and you just want to risk it and say, screw it, that Ral in seat 2, I'm going to try to get there, and if they get there after me, they get there after me. It is what it is.
I mean, I've done it.
Yeah.
I took the risk.
What a funny game that actually makes me think of this topic is one from one of my very early tournaments at the Gathering Place. And I don't remember the 2 other decks. There's a really greedy Esper deck that slammed a Necro. I had a heuristic study out. Nobody had anything to say about the Necro. I think I was greedy, and I think I tapped out for the heuristic study, but I'm Malcolm Vile, so that's not my problem. And they're about 2 mana short from getting there on this convoluted Necro Born line. They have fed the crap out of me. I am well fed. Other player untaps, they don't really have anything to say. I get a turn somehow. I untap. Was it even on my upkeep? It was on my upkeep. A player cracks a Ranger Captain. And that player didn't crack it on the Necro player because of Flash. He had the Born. He just went, whatever. The Ranger wasn't relevant on the Esper player's turn. They crack it on my upkeep. I'm on Malcolm Vile.
Mistake.
I say, oh, are you guys silenced? I can't cast non-creature. Oh, okay. Glinthorn? I look around, everyone's like, oh, she can do that. And everyone's like, well, what do we have? What do we have? And they're like, Hatterolic, if we weren't under a Ranger Captain. Move to combat. I have more mana than God. Activate Glinthorn. GG's, guys. Nothing to say about it.
Yep. And that's...
And that was the knowledge of, they were expecting Breach from the Grixis deck,
right,
which is normally reasonable, but the Grixis deck included Malcolm, and they weren't expecting the creature combo. Yeah. And that goes with the knowledge of the deck and knowing, hey, let's see her put the Breach on the stack before we crack this Ranger Captain, right? That knowing when to interact with them.
Yeah. And it's just something that happens a lot, right? Where it's, players are in these situations where they know specific wins, right? They know, okay, I need to win against, I know like Breach is going to come out. I know Thoracle is going to come out. I know in TNT, they're going to make infinite mana in some way, shape, or form. Rogdrass is going to Boro. Sisay is going to do the Sisay thing. Most people don't actually know what the Sisay thing is, but they'll just say the Sisay thing, 10 treasures and win.
Yeah.
It's actually funny. Sometimes it's way less than 10 treasures. Yeah. Sometimes it's more. Then it's, I'm trying to think of some other ones. Like Tim Nadargo's got some loops that people kind of know but don't really know. Mm-hmm. Like that's another one I think gets players is Tim Nadargo because they're expecting breach lines. Mm-hmm. And then they'll start some niche Dargo loop and they're like, wait, what's going on? Yeah, like wait, that's a sack outlet? We should have dealt with that? Oh, crap. I've seen it before too, where like people missed obvious removal pieces on like when we were playing like Rakdos the Muscle deck, mm-hmm, where they started doing the graveyard looping, and the guy was like, "Oh, I had a removal this whole time," and it was like, "Bro, you should have removed something way long ago." Yeah. Or like Tivit's another one where people aren't really, if you're not always paying attention to the fact that Tivit comes down, immediately makes the stuff it needs for time save. Sometimes players miss that. I don't know.
People forget about that a lot. The fact that it's a self-fulfilling engine, right? They can Tivit time steve all at once.
I literally had a player who looked at me and was like, I didn't know it could do this all at once. I was like, what do you mean you didn't know? Like, is that not a thing people just don't know? Thankfully, we had the interaction to remove it, but like the guy was confused about how he was already Tivit time steeving. He thought I had to wait a turn. I was like, that is not how that works.
No, it is not.
So some of this does come down to knowledge and does come down to playing. I mean, you hear a lot here too, right? We talk about you got to play a lot of games. And it's because there's all these various disparate decks that are out there. And new decks get added all the time that are also doing weird things. And even experienced players will get got by decks that they don't understand how they work. I mean, it happens. It just happened to me at Forest Fight. I was playing against a newer deck. I did not know how it worked. I thought I did. I was very wrong. About halfway through the game, I started to realize how the deck worked and realized, oh, we'd made some mistakes along the way. There were some cards we should have been removing, and we took out other cards instead. It happens, right? There's a card I probably should have mulled for, or a couple cards I could have mulled for that would have changed that game pretty dramatically, and I just didn't know. I think a lot of times it just comes down to, like, Lumra's another one. People just don't know how that deck works.
Yeah.
So this is partly relevant for Turbo, but it's also relevant to other decks. It's about knowing, because part of the idea when we went back to that first step, right, is when you're talking about keeping the right hands, you have to understand that, does this hand actually stop the decks at the table, right? If I keep a Ranger Captain and I'm playing against Kinnan, Rockdust, TNT, or a Deafening Silence, I've seen players do this, where they'll drop like a turn 1 Deafening Silence and think they're safe, right? Because Deafening Silence stops players. But then if you're sitting at three other creature decks, that Deafening Silence didn't do anything. It was a waste of your mana, a waste of the mole, and you didn't actually stop anything except potentially winning yourself, right? So it comes down to, did you actually keep the cards that stop the players? One counterspell probably doesn't stop a Ral. Did you keep removal? That stops a Ral. Same thing with like Rowan, right? I know a lot of players have like, I kept 3 pieces of interaction for Rowan and it didn't stop them. No shit. They're going to cast 3 spells for basically free. Like, what did you expect? You have to remove the Rowan if you're going to stop the Rowan, right? So there's a lot of these decks out there, and there's more and more printed every day. Well, not maybe every day, but they're every set, right? We get at least one CEDH-ish commander. At least ish. Maybe it's fringy, but it's there. And someone will run it. I played against some decks that I did not know were even being considered for the meta. Like Spectacular Spider-Man, or whatever the blue-black one is.
Interesting.
Maybe it's not Spectacular, but
Interesting.
The blue-black one, I was like, okay. I didn't think it was that good, but it was there. It was certainly there. He spent all game trying to reanimate a Nezahal, I think.
Gross.
Or maybe it was a Razagith.
Gross.
He's trying to reanimate something scary, and it just never happened. I had a Calamity's Wake. I love that card.
Hate that card. Absolutely despicable.
Yeah. So
anyway,
I think what it comes down to is just experience playing these decks, understanding how they operate and work. Nothing feels worse than realizing you had to stop and you just missed it.
And that's the thing. Sometimes with Turbo, right, it is a series of just getting got until you don't get got anymore. I think I lost my first 2 games against Ral because I foolishly let a wheel resolve.
Yep.
Getting greedy, thinking, oh, I'm Blue Farm. I love a wheel. My graveyard will get filled. It'll be great. Maybe I'll draw some interaction. Didn't draw any interaction. Died subsequently to Ral. Everything was awful. And it just took learning, getting got twice, not once, but twice, and then realizing, okay, wheels just can't resolve in this deck. Cool, lesson learned, moving on, right? And sometimes it just comes with taking those L's, playing against the Turbo decks, getting got by better players than you, and just moving on and learning from it, right? It's just the trial and error process.
We hope you found this discussion useful. I think that there's a lot of nuances, obviously, that exist that we can't cover in an hour and a half. But hopefully these give you some tips on how to deal in the Turbo meta. You can exist in it, I promise. No deck is too slow for Turbo meta. I promise you, everyone told me that. They told me TNT sucks, it's plotting, it's slow, it's not very good, Tree Farm sucks, whatever, right? I'm doing just fine. And I promise you, it's not a deck issue. It's not your deck is too slow. your deck can survive. Talion just top 16, and we have that deck I thought was dead. Like dead. And it just top 16. So your deck is not dead. Nivs have been top 16ing for a while now, and that deck is a 6-mana, 3 blue and 3 red commander. If that deck can make it, I'm telling you guys, any deck can survive in this meta. It just comes down to making the correct mulligan decisions, politicking it correctly, being able to identify those threats and be able to convince the table to go along with your plan to stop them, and then understanding how those decks actually operate and are trying to win so that your interaction is actually valuable against them, because there's nothing worse than keeping a piece of interaction that does nothing against the player actually winning. And if you do all those things, you'll survive the turbo meta. All right. Question time. What questions do we have for the audience today? Or from the audience? For the audience. From and for the audience.
All right, so our first question comes from our YouTube comment section. Kyle Crazy Mars 6726. Yes, another video. I'm so hyped to see this. I've been consuming so much CEDH videos. I've been wanting to get into CEDH, but I want to try to attack the meta with a fringe deck, and I think I found a commander I want to use. Rowan has been used and done work in tournaments. I think Will, Scion of Peace, would be a great fringe deck. Thoughts?
I think it is a great fringe deck as you put it out there. I've actually built this deck before. It's an interesting deck. The problem is you have to run a lot of bad cards to make it work, because you have to run a lot of the kind of weird life gain cards that are like, 1 mana gain 3 life, or it's like Revitalize. I think it's like 2 mana gain 4. There's a couple of decent ones out there, because like there's one that destroys enchantments and also gains life, and then I think maybe draws you a card. So like I don't think it's a bad deck in concept. The issue I had with the deck is it doesn't win very easily, because blue-white has really, really bad win cons. So you're looking for like Teferi Kitten, and then you're still looking for an outlet. I literally, when I was doing my list, I was running the Reiterate and the stupid Armageddon or whatever, the blue.
Is Reiterate Azorius?
Not Reiterate, sorry. The white one that puts a spell back in your hand after you cast it.
I believe you, but I don't remember.
I can't remember what it's called. It's Remand.
Remand. Okay.
Is that what it is? Yeah, it's like it's a Lord of the Rings art. I can picture it in my head.
Okay.
Either way, and then it's the something of the seventh sun.
Approach of the Second Sun.
Yes.
The white card, right? It's a white card.
Or it's a blue-white card.
Or a blue-white card. No, I think it's just white.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Either way,
I used to run that in a casual deck. I love that card.
Yeah, that was the win con. Was like Approach of the Second Sun, remand it back to hand, recast it, and it was like 3 white because all your spells are 6 mana cheaper. It's funny. It's not good, but it's funny. Other than that, you'd run like Heliod Ballista combo, because Heliod already does the life gain thing, so you run it with Ballista. And I don't know that we were even running Teferi Kitten, I'll be honest. I can't remember what else the win cons were. You could do some funny things though, like I cast a Jin-Jitaxis for like 1 blue or 2 blue.
I remember that game. Okay, your win rate on Will was actually really high. I will say that. You tinkered with it for like 10 games, and I think you won 7 or 8 out of 10 games. It was ridiculous.
It's because nobody would pay attention to what I was doing. They're like, eh. I'd be like, yeah, gain 5 life. And then it'd be like, tap Will. Here's a Constrix. Like, the deck is weird. I don't know that it's good, but it's funny.
It'd be a good fringe deck for if you're going for fringe.
On my old
why
channel,
not?
On my old channel, I actually did a review on it where I talked about it being one of my 5 best lobby con decks because it was fun for lobby con.
You did do that.
I don't know. I would take it to. It's not Voja. I would take it to an event. It has blue. It has blue and it has counter spells. I'm at least drawing 7 games.
That's fair.
I'm not. Voja gives me no agency. That's why I never take that deck anywhere. No agency. You're praying every turn. You're like, don't win.
It's always funny when people would look at you like, yeah, priority, and you're just like, okay, pass priority.
It did have cool. It did have sneaky interaction. It was sneaky. It was more.
It was annoying. It was more sneaky annoying.
Because you'd run like all the weird, like flash creatures that stop, like all the weird white flash creatures that stop weird stuff.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Will's Fringe, it's viable. I don't know that it's viable, but it is going to win games. It's not as good as Rowan. Rowan is busted. Busted. Red black is just better color combination than blue white. It is what it is.
All right, next question.
And loss of life is easier. You run like no bad cards.
Speaking of, okay, so another question from our YouTube comments, Juice17776. Speaking of Niv, have either of you tried Malcolm Kettis Polymorph? So I have not. I have never tried Malcolm Kedis, period. I think I've piloted it as a joke in lobby cons, but I've never seriously taken it to a tournament. Now, what I almost did at the inception of my CEDH career, and this originated from the old CEDH decklist database. So I know when Jordan and I were newcomers to the format, that was our end all be all before we knew what Top Deck was and what EDH Top 16 was, and before we watched any influencers for the CEDH space. That was kind of our end all be all for a brief second. And
we didn't know anything else.
We were babies, right? I saw a Malcolm Rograk polymorph Glinthorn list.
I think it was called Polyhorn.
Polyhorn, yeah.
Because it was polymorphed
into Glinthorn. That was the whole plan. It was just all in on Glinthorn. And I was this close to just running that. And then for some reason, it left the CEDH decklist database. And I think just Malcolm Vile was left. And then Chris and TK were talking to me about Malcolm Vile, and that's kind of
why Malcolm Vile,
where I got to where I was on my Grixis journey. But TLDR, no, I've never tried the Malcolm Kedis variant of that. Polymorph strategies are really fragile and really easily interruptible, and like we've kind of talked about this whole episode, I like to have agency in a game, and having somebody just counter my one spell to get all in on Glinthorn Buccaneer doesn't sound like a good time to me.
Well, I don't even think they're referencing the Glinthorn plan. I think they're talking about Shauna's style, where it's you're polymorphing into the Niv and then trying to use the Niv Curiosity to win.
That is Glinthorn agnostic. I believe there was a time she didn't run Glinthorn. I don't know if that has been...
I don't know either.
Amended, but there was a point she didn't run Glinthorn.
I would say this. I am not a big fan of Secret Commander decks. It's too fragile, right? Because I've had plenty of games when I was running my Niv list where my Niv got bounced or killed. If your Niv goes down in your Malcolm Kedis list, what's your backup plan, right? Like, I respect the hustle. I respect you're still trying to figure out how to make Niv work. I personally do not believe in Secret Commander lists. I don't think there's a point to them. The whole point of Commander is you're playing with the fact that you're always going to have access to these cards out of your command zone. Running a bad shell around that card just to get access to that card. And it's not even a card that wins on the spot. If it was a card that won on the spot, sure. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of times you're basically doing this to then play a weird control plan.
To get the engine to then draw into the curiosity to get to step 3.
But you're not even running, like if I'm running a Niv today, my Niv today would be a lot different than my old Niv, right? But I'd be running Vivi for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I'd run the new Katara, because I think that one's really interesting for a controlled deck. Baral was always awesome. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you could even get away with running Ral and doing like a pseudo Stormish version. But even just having the reduction is huge for Niv. I found like that was one of the key reasons for running Baral was just getting the reduction.
Right.
And so like Ral being just another cheap reducer and red mana being a lot easier to get access to than blue.
Right.
Yeah, no, I think my Niv deck would look a lot different. And I just think going in all in on a fragile strategy, not my cup of tea, but more power to people who do. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. This is from Kyle Anderson, 7966. How's the Frank Thrass journey going? I personally love the deck. I started trying Rog Thrass, then Yoshi Thrass, and was like, why not Frank Thrass? Question on the deck. Am I crazy for wanting to put Basalt in as another win con?
So it's going good. I actually just finished an iteration of the deck. I need to paper it and test it because I don't know. Moxfield is fine, right? You can do some test hands and you can at least see if it like somewhat functions, but you won't know how good a deck is until you paper it and actually play it. So I just need to paper it. I've got all the cards for it somewhere around here. Just gotta find them all. Or if you look in like the closet over there, it's just
it's a mess behind us, guys.
And piles of cards.
You can kind of see the bulk if you look close enough.
Yeah, there's cards everywhere in this room.
Yeah.
This isn't even behind us, not even the worst part. Yeah. The closet's like a disaster. There's probably about 30,000 cards in there to sort through and figure out where everything is.
We have a problem.
Yeah. And I don't want to do it. That's honestly the biggest problem. I mean, to be fair, I've won a lot of those cards. I also spent a lot of money on a lot of those cards.
Do you want a cookie for winning some of those cards?
Well, I'm saying we didn't spend money on all of them. That was the point. Is we didn't spend money on all of them. Right? A lot of those boxes were free, but a lot of them weren't. So
We have a problem.
anyway, Frank Tass is going good. I just need to paper it and play it. As to the Basalt question, no, I do not think the deck should be running Basalt. My version, I don't even think is on Kinnan. Maybe that's wrong. Again, I haven't played it yet. So, but the problem I have with Basalt, and the reason I took it out of my TNT list, while it's a great A/B combo, man, does it feel really bad to draw. Like there's no game situation where drawing Basalt feels good, ever.
Even just for extra mana.
I can't even use it right away. I'm paying 3 to make 3, right? And the problem also is in certain decks, it's a complete dead draw. You never play it against a Kinnan. It's dubious to play it against certain artifact decks that you think could be running Gadgeteer.
That's fair.
Right? So like it's not a card that I play all that often. I was already starting to make the way out of my TNT list before I switched over to Tree Farm. Like my no bad cards TNT was already probably going to come off of Basalt anyway. You already run enough win cons in Frank. That's actually when I was building my version. I was literally like, can I cut some of these win cons because I almost have too many, right? You already got Thoracle. You've got the Ballista Agatha's combo. My version is also running the Oboro Devoted Druid combo. So if you're running Oboro combo and the Devoted Hazel combo. Maybe that's it. Oh, and Eternal Witness lines. We've got enough combos. You don't need to run another bad one. You don't need it.
Fair enough. Jordan has spoken. Okay, this next question comes from somebody whose name I didn't screenshot, but it will be on the screen when Jordan edits it in. As a fellow Pirate Farm lover, thanks for posting the list. I like some of the things you mentioned about changes and needing to add Glamour, Gifter, and Hexing Squelcher. I'm curious what all direction you decide to go. I have some questions for your thoughts. Has Lightning Rig Crew actually been good? Have you liked Braids? It's felt kind of meh to me the few times I've seen it. And what's the reasoning for not playing the alternate win con of turning Mayhem Devil into a pirate at instant speed with Artificial Evolution or Trickery Charm? Too cute or dead too often? Thanks.
Good questions.
Those are good questions. I love Pirate Farm related questions. So Lightning Rig Crew has been a huge hit in the deck. I think it's a great engine. It propels my mana forward. Put a Curiosity on it. It draws cards for every pirate that you drop, which is surprisingly a lot in the deck. And then have an effect like Leyline, and you can go absolutely crazy with it. I've won games that way. I am a huge proponent of Lightning Rig Crew in the deck personally. I know some people in the Malcolm Vile Discord talked about cutting it, which was crazy to me. I personally like it. Even for the more turbo slanted variants of the list, I still think that 3 extra mana that Lightning Rig Crew and Malcolm provides is great in a Necro push turn, an Ad Naz push turn, getting through a breach line. But yeah, no, I really love the card. Braids has felt good to me as well, although full disclosure, I've only had probably less than 10 reps on the list in the past 2 weeks because I'm just getting back into it. I don't have time to play a lot of games, honestly. Do a lot of yapping about CEDH, but not a lot of playing CEDH sometimes.
Not really.
So yeah, I've enjoyed Braids though. It feels really good. I think it's a Malcolm agnostic engine, even though some people don't think so. You don't need the treasure for Malcolm to sacrifice. Sacrifice a Mana Vault, sacrifice an Orcish Bowmaster's token, an Orc army, right? Like there's so much that you can do with it. Sacrifice a land if you're really that down bad. I've been that down bad before. So I personally enjoy Braids, but I know some people may identify it as more outdated now, that there are different engines out there. So I'm willing to be wrong, but I still like the card. And then lastly, not running Artificial Evolution and Trickery Charm. This is something I get asked about in the list a lot. I personally think it's too cute and dead too often. I think you kind of hit both of those on the head right there. I find they're very conditional, and if you don't have Mayhem Devil, they just sit dead in your hand. There is the utility of, okay, well, maybe if you have a Lightning Rig Crew, or if you have an Orcish Bowmasters, you can get some utility out of it there. I just find I prefer Leyline, where you get the value throughout the game, and it's not one splashy play. And for winning purposes, a 1-drop instant is the easiest thing to counter in CEDH, so that's also not great. Like, yes, it's instant speed, but it's quite fragile. So I don't personally enjoy them, but once again, I know a lot of people do, and the list works for me. So, if it doesn't work for you, edit it as you please. But yeah, I love yapping about Pirate Farm. Thanks for the question.
All right, so that's going to be it for our questions today. Next, we'll switch over to talking about the current meta. We're actually going to use the Love and War CEDH event out in Ohio. I think it was Ohio. Pretty sure it was Ohio. This was an interesting event. Our boy Matt Sweeney took it down on Kinnan. Awesome. Good job, Matt. A lot of blue farm. Actually, surprising amount of blue farm. I mean, maybe it's not that surprising. Ohio's very...
Six blue farms, right?
Yeah, 6 blue farms out of 16. That's higher than we've seen recently.
Yeah.
But it's also Ohio, and they run a lot of blue farm up there. So it's not overly surprising, but maybe a little bit. What honestly is surprising to me, I mean, right, 2 Kinnans, 2 blue farms in the top 4. So it's like the top of the meta is the top of the meta. It's been pretty clear. I think Kinnan is the best deck in the format right now, in the right... Probably still a little bit in the right hands, but maybe we're starting to bridge that gap where even it's no longer the right hands like it used to be. It's now any player can pick up Kinnan and do decently well-ish on it.
I think we're there.
If you're running any kind of variation of Evan's list, I think you're kind of close to that.
Yeah. Blue farm's still blue farm. Blue farm's going to top 4. Blue farm's going to top 16. We saw it take a downturn for a minute, but that was short-lived. So
short-lived. But yeah, 8 of the decks, blue farm or Kinnan. But then what's interesting is the other 8 decks were all one-offs, and not even necessarily like top-of-the-line decks. Like there's a couple, right? You still have your Rogsai, your TNT. But then after that, you've got Yisan, interesting.
That's random.
Tayam, interesting. Gitrog Monster, Arkham Dagson, Narset, and Magda. So like some actually relatively interesting decks, right? Like
Yeah.
One-offs. I mean, I haven't seen Gitrog Monster. I've started to see a little bit more recently, here and there, which has been interesting. Arkham Dagson, I think, always kind of pops up. I think a lot of people have picked up that this deck is actually really easy to win with because a lot of players don't know how to play against it, and it wins very quickly.
Also, not surprising to see Magda. I feel like Magda is one of those Swiss killers we mentioned, where if you don't know what to expect, it just wins right there, and pretty easy to pick up a couple wins on Magda.
Yeah, Tayam's another interesting one. I think Tayam is really interesting into this meta right now because it does so many things well, right? It plays out good stacks pieces that stop a lot of the main decks. It really only gets hosed by Curse Totem and some Graveyard Hate, but no one really runs Graveyard Hate in the meta. Yeah. So for the most part, you're really just trying to dodge a Curse Totem. I feel like
there's not enough removal to effectively deal with the Tayam, right?
Bowmaster.
Not enough creature counterspells either.
No. Well, you're not even... It's really kill Tayam, right? Because you're not even casting most of the time. You're just pulling stuff out of the graveyard.
Yeah.
Plus, they can win at instant speed with Tayam loops, which is really cool. No, I think Tayam's always been really solid. And we have a local player named Benny, local-ish, who's been... I've seen him play Tayam a bunch of times, and he's a really good player.
Yeah.
So
he's a goated Tayam player.
Yeah. So... Yeah, I think it's an interesting meta. I think really the biggest takeaway is the top of the meta has been pretty solidified for a minute. I think it's the big 6 right now are from play perspective, right? It's Blue Farm, Kinnan, Rogthras, Sisay, Rogsai, and TNT, I think, are your big 6.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, some people might argue about TNT being there, but if we're talking about just playable, I think, or people playing it, I think TNT is your other big one. And I think it is starting to see an uptick again.
Oh, yeah.
People are starting to pick it back up in droves. So the interesting thing I think about the meta right now, and one of the reasons I love it so much, is it's very diverse, right? I think almost every tournament you're seeing about half the field are these one-off fringe, quote-unquote, decks, right? I don't even know if you could argue some of these are fringe anymore. Arkham Dagson seems like it's pretty well suited into the meta, but a lot of these decks have kind of found their niche in the meta, and I think it's really interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just really interesting. We don't have a clear picture of the meta right now. I think you're solidified top 6, and then after that, it's kind of a shuffle up of who's kind of on a hot streak at the moment.
Yeah, that's fair. We talked about it at the beginning of the episode, right? The diversity kind of since Dockside left the format, a lot of the changes that we've seen, and I don't think it's a bad thing.
No, I don't either. I think I'm very happy where the meta is right now. I still think Rhystic Study should probably be banned at some point, if we're being honest with ourselves. But man, is it a drug. Rhystic Study is a drug.
Yes, it is. Unless you don't have it, then it's a stupid card.
Don't remind me. Yeah, too many games like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Interesting meta right now. So, this is going to be all the time we have for today. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. It's meant a lot to us. We've grown, I think, quickly. I'm actually not sure how that metric works, but it feels like it's been quick. And it's been a lot of, it feels like there's been a lot of excitement and a lot of really positive messages. So we just can't thank everyone enough. To continue to support the channel, please like, subscribe, comment. We love seeing it. We love hearing it. Join the Discord. And then come out to the boil. See us there. Lily and I will be there. We'll be excited to talk and meet everyone. And I think it's always fun. It's always a good time.
Yeah. Don't forget to leave your questions in our Discord or in our comment section. We love answering audience questions. One of the more fun parts of recording, right, is getting to interact with the audience. So please continue to send those in and, do all the things. Interact with us online. Like, comment, subscribe, like Jordan said.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff.
Yep. So thank you, everyone. And until next week, see you guys.
Thank you, guys.